In today's Leeds news, rule change considered following Leeds incident, this weekend's loan watch, Pundit predicts Farke sack, and Dan James injury concern. Morning folks, welcome to Leeds View for Monday the 1st of December with your Leeds United news. Hope your weekend went well. I hope you were encouraged by the second half performance by Leeds United against Manchester City and lucky not to get anything from that game. Poor first half but very good second half from Leeds United. The match review or the instant match reaction is available on the channel. Also, we had a bonus podcast this weekend where we sat down and talked to Lewis Dayton, who's done a documentary on the history of the rivalry between Leeds United and Chelsea ahead of this Wednesday's game. You can check that one out if you want. Also, the Black Friday sales from Leeds United are still ongoing. The links are down below in the description. You can check them out if you want. And not a huge amount of news to get stuck into. The major talking point will be the reaction in the second half from Leeds against Manchester City and what Daniel Farke decides to do heading into this Wednesday's game. And again, also the game against Liverpool at the weekend. So still a tricky couple of games coming up for Leeds United, and it's going to be interesting to see where everyone sits on the manager's future. We'll get to that towards the back end of the video. We'll start today with the rule change being considered after the obvious incident that took place on Saturday. The last time Leeds United were in the Premier League, Patrick Bamford had a goal ruled out against Crystal Palace because his hand was offside. And that ultimately led to a change in the rules because you can't score with your hand. So why would your hand be affecting an offside? And we're now in a similar situation again. Not quite a goal, but another incident with Leeds in the Premier League that may now kick off a rule change. And according to some reports, there is a change being considered. In the 57th minute on Saturday, Gianluigi Donnarumma was instructed by Manchester City coaching staff and players on the pitch to go down injured, which caused a stoppage as he needed to receive treatment. That led to Pep Guardiola having a tactical timeout, halfway line powwow with his entire squad after Leeds for the first time this season had made proactive changes and had changed the balance of the game. Leeds have got back into the match, and this is not the first time that Manchester City have utilised this tactic this season, but they're not the only side that have utilised it throughout this season. Daniel Farke was speaking after the game, and on the incident, he said the following: "Everyone knows why he went down. It's not the elephant in the room. Why he went down was obvious. It's within the rules. It is smart. Do I like it? If it's within the sense of fair play, if it should be like this, I will keep those thoughts to myself. It's up to the authorities to find a solution." Daniel Farke did point to the fact that he did discuss the incident with the fourth official at that point, and the fourth official told him that their hands were tied and there wasn't anything that they could do about it. Now, Pep Guardiola came out after the game and he said that there was nothing in it, that wasn't the case, that Donnarumma was probably injured and he'd need to go and check it out. But there has been more discussions on this, and according to BBC's Dale Johnson, discussions have been held about a potential rule change which would see a player being asked to be removed in place of the goalkeeper should a keeper need treatment. And he said this: "At a meeting of the International Football Association's Board's Football and Technical Advisory Panel in October, various measures to improve the flow of the play and minimise interruptions were discussed. The tactic of using a supposed goalkeeper injury so that a coach can speak to players was talked about at length. There was support for the idea that if a goalkeeper has treatment, then the team must nominate another player to go off for 30 seconds in their place, making it consistent with the regulations for other players." The simple situation with this one is just a case of not allowing players to go to the halfway line to speak to the manager if a goalkeeper is getting treatment, or ask all the coaching staff and technical staff to sit in the dugout. Again, there's a fourth official and other officials there that can police that pretty easily, but again, it seems like a case that those who do make the rules are overcomplicating a situation that has a relatively easy solution. The keeper goes down, you're not allowed to bring your players over to the halfway line, manager's not allowed to coach from the sideline. End of story. Just put that in place. If the manager does it, you book the manager. Simple as that. But again, an over convoluted rule looking like they're trying to bring in to try and fix the situation. And again, I mean, they'll still waste time with this. I mean, if you nominate a player, well, who's going to come off? You know, there's a big talk about that, and then likely instructions can still get onto the pitch during that situation as well. So yeah, not an ideal situation, but yeah, it is what it is. But we'll see how it goes. Let's move on. Let's talk about this weekend's loan watch. Start off with Joe Gelhardt, and a 90th minute winner scored by Joffy gave Hull a 2-1 away win over Stoke City. That's Gelhardt's 9th goal of the season, along with 3 assists in 16 starts for Hull City. Isaac Schmidt was an unused sub for the 2nd game in a row in Werder Bremen's 1-1 draw with Cologne. Max Ferber sat out this game again, still out with a hamstring issue. Mateo Joseph started but was subbed off in the 65th minute in Real Mallorca's 2-2 home draw with Osasuna. Largi Ramazani missed out on Valencia's 1-0 home win over Levante, but is expected to be back in action in the next week or so. Charlie Crew was again an unused substitute for Doncaster Rovers in their 2-1 home win to Peterborough. Crew has only appeared 5 times all season for Doncaster. Rory Mahady played 90 minutes for Scunthorpe in their 4-2 away loss to Altrincham, and he picked up a yellow card in that one. Mixed fortunes again this weekend for the Leeds United loanees. Keep an eye on them. Max Ferber is getting closer to coming back, although he's barely kicked the ball this season for Werder Bremen. Isaac Schmidt being an unused sub again doesn't bode well for Leeds, hoping to get some money in January from some of these loan players that have options to buy the players. And Mateo Joseph back out in the wing for Real Mallorca, played 65, was subbed off, no real goal involvements there. But Joffy's flying, absolutely flying for Hull City. Looks really, really sharp in the Championship. Let's move on. Let's get into the pundits' opinion of the weekend's action. And Leeds' second half performance gave everyone a little bit of hope for what's coming up in the next couple of games. But whether Daniel Farke's hand was forced or whether it was one final Hail Mary, it ultimately didn't matter, as he did finally change to the 3-5-2 that everybody has been screaming out for, and what on paper looked like Leeds United had essentially recruited for. But Farke did insist after the game that it wasn't the formation change that gave Leeds the turnaround in fortunes, and that's led people to believe that he will revert back to a back four for the midweek game at Chelsea. Whatever happens, this could be a decisive week in Daniel Farke's future at Leeds United, and pundits have already started to have their opinions on that. Former Premier League winner and manager Tim Sherwood was speaking with Sky, and he believes that Daniel Farke will be sacked in the next week regardless of what happens, and he said this to Sky Sports. He will get sacked within the next 3 games, 100%. I don't think he should. I think they should keep hold of him because he's getting the most out of this group. People will say they spent 100 million, but they're way behind and have a lot of championship players. A lot of established Premier League teams are spending more, so they're always going further ahead. He will get sacked because they won't sit on their hands and they can't change the players, so they will change the manager. The big talking point, or the big thing that everybody will be keeping an eye out for on Wednesday night, will be whether Daniel Farke does revert back to a 4 at the back, and the team lineup that he puts out will be what everybody will be watching for. And again, nearly everybody has said that this has to be the blueprint for Leeds United to move forward. But Leeds fans aren't unrealistic, and they're not illogical fans. All they want from this side in this rotten run of fixtures for Leeds is a bit of heart, a bit of fight, and a bit of battle. And we saw that in the second half against Manchester City. We want to see it for 2 halves now in the game against Chelsea. Whether Daniel Farke decides to revert back or move forward with this will ultimately probably decide what his future looks like at the club. He got one bonus coming into this game. Chelsea's midfielder Moises Caicedo is suspended after picking up a red card against Arsenal, but they still managed to get a draw in that game despite the fact that they had 10 men, and they have got tons of depth in reserve, and Cole Palmer's back involved with their squad as well. So we're still coming up against a pretty tough side coming into Wednesday's game. So yeah, won't be that much easier, but that lineup, that formation will be what everyone is keeping a close eye on, and we'll likely get some information on that before the game on Wednesday. Podcast will be out tomorrow night. Myself, Paul and Jerry looking ahead to that Chelsea game and what Daniel Farke needs to do in the next 2 to try and keep his job, or keep Leeds at least within touching distance. The results at the weekend, most of them went their way, so we're not cut adrift just yet. There is still hope that we can get out of this mess that we're in right now. But let's move on. Let's talk about the injury concern to Daniel James. Dan James started on Saturday and looked really sharp in the first half, but there is an injury concern now heading into the game on Wednesday. Daniel Farke feels that Dan James could be out for a while after a reoccurrence of a hamstring issue that he had earlier this season, which led to him being substituted at halftime, and maybe even was part of the reason why Daniel Farke changed the system to the 3-5-2. The extent of the injury at this point isn't fully known. Some are saying it could be a reoccurrence of the same injury he had at the beginning of this season. Others think it could be a different issue. But Daniel Farke told BBC Sports that Dan James reported an issue with his hamstring at half time, and he feels that he may have actually gone and done the hamstring this time around, but he stressed that further assessment will be needed before they can make a decision on Dan James. James has struggled to get going this season because of injuries. And the last thing you want to have from a player whose main attribute is pace is consistent hamstring issues. It just slows the player down, and that is by a mile Dan James' key attribute, and Leeds will want to have him back involved. But we'll likely again hear more information from Daniel Farke before the game on Wednesday around whether Dan James is okay, whether it's worse than it is. But the fact that he's leaned into saying he could be out for a while isn't great. And again, whether it's the reoccurrence or not, we'll have to wait and find out in the next couple of days. But a bit of a blow. And if he does revert to a 3-5-2, doesn't really need him. He has more options there. He's got Gabby Goodmunson and Jayden Bogle wide. Can also use James Justin. He was very good at the weekend as well. So yeah, he's got options there. Not the end of the world if it is the case. Again, assuming he maintains the 3-5-2 system. But again, that's anyone's guess at this point. Folks, that'll be it for me today. Back tomorrow morning for the news. The podcast's out tomorrow night, and you can check out the interview stating around the history and the rivalry between Leeds United and Chelsea before the game on Wednesday night. Outside that, I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you later. Bye.